Hi, this is Russ Ballard, and you're listening to the Voices of Russ Ballard podcast.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to the Voices of Russ Ballard with myself, Ian.
And me, Sven. Hello, world.
Hello, world, indeed. What everybody listening can't see is my very good friend in Germany is actually recording this introduction to, obviously, the Bob Henrit, second part of the Bob Henrit podcast, in his garden, looking very summery. He's relaxed. He's chilling. So it's good to see you looking so well, Mr. Sven, if I may say so.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Thank you. I'm feeling good. Just
looking good.
Took the chance to revisit our Bob Pot part one, and of course part two, getting the things together. And I must say, it's a brilliant piece of work, and we do have brilliant stories for our listeners today in Bob Pot 2. And let's take the chance to say, to shout out a huge thank you to all of our listeners. And I think Ian has a very funny story for us. One of our lovely listeners gave us brilliant feedback. Ian, tell us a little bit more about it.
You'd be referring to Mr. Gaza Hunt.
Yeah,
although his real name's Gary, so well done, that man. But he spent 2 days of his life, which he can't get back, listening to all our podcasts, and sent us a lovely note on the Voices of Russ Ballard Facebook group, which, if you're not a member, you please do look us up and become a member. And it's called the Voices of Russ Ballard. But thanks to Gary, because it was nice. We don't get too much feedback. I know we get some, but we were always welcome. So it's all, we always welcome the feedback. So that's really much appreciated. And in fact, as Sven just said, this particular podcast that we're going to be going on to now, the second part of Bob Henrit, is some, as Sven said earlier, some of the most amazing stories that we've actually had since we've been doing the series. You're going to be hearing about Genesis. You're going to be hearing about nearly joining Genesis. You're going to be hearing about Ringo Starr, Keith Moon drinking whiskey in the back of a Rolls Royce. You're going to be hearing about the Kinks and not telling the drummer what the set list is until literally you're on the stage, and then it's going to change anyway. And meeting the Queen. You've just got lots to hear about. But apologies for my voice, by the way. I'm suffering with a little bit of man flu. I think I must have got it on the rebound, probably from somewhere. But in any event, without any further ado, I think we should probably get on with the podcast, Sven. What do you think?
Turn it on again. Bob Pot 2, full of lovely stories. Hope you guys enjoy it. And now we push the button.
Well, hello again, everybody. And you're back with the Voices of Russ Ballard. And more to the point, we are back with Bob Henrit, probably one of the best drummers in the world of his generation, and if not ever. And if you don't believe me, then go on YouTube. Have a look at Argent live at the Palace Theatre on the 11th of July, 1973, and just look at the athlete that is Bob Henrit. Or you can ask Keith Moon, Phil Collins, or many others. So, Sven, we're back. We need to talk about, I think, the Barnet Dogs, and I know that's one of your real favorites, one of my favorites. Do you want to kick us off with Bob?
Yes, please. So, welcome back. We've spoken about Argent. We've spoken about several drummers and hit records recorded but not yet released. We've spoken about Phoenix Time, and the next band, Bob, you were part of, and I'm really keen to understand how this came about, is the Barnet Dogs. You were part of the Barnet Dogs. You were the backbone of the Barnet Dogs.
Yeah, I get. Well, I was the drummer. Whether that's the backbone or not, I have no idea, Sven. But it's interesting, really, because I don't believe Russell and I have never sat down and talked about the Barnet Dogs, and yet we did it, and it was us, and we enjoyed it. But I don't think we've ever revisited it as a conversation. But of course, we have revisited it as far as songs when we're playing live with Russell are concerned, and they're very enjoyable songs to play. And I mean, well, it might have been me that said it, but it's known as Russell's punk period.
Exactly. Well, that's what he. But that's what he says. That's what he said. He said that it was the punk era, and it was kind of his, moment at the time of the season. No, it was the moment that took him, and he just felt that this is his answer to the punk era.
Yeah, it was kind of his answer to this punk thing, but more or less, hey, it was pretty good rock. It was a good rock, or it were good rock albums, and
very raw.
The best possible answer to punk.
Yeah, well, we grabbed it by the whatever bits the danglies. Maybe that's the word, but we grabbed it and we enjoyed it, and it was really rocking, as evidenced by the record. We were happening, and we were in a studio in Wood Green. No, we weren't. We were in a studio in Barnet that belonged to a friend of ours who I went to school with, and Russ. We knocked around together. This guy was a very technical chap, and we went to his studio to record this, and we had a great time, and punctuated with a couple of with an evening drink in the Railway Tavern, which was just across the road, and we had a whale of a time. And I think it came out. It's evidenced in the record what fun we were having.
Yeah, definitely,
without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So
I mean,
that's really reflections of it. The studio itself, which was called Livingston. I don't know if anybody else has mentioned Livingston, but Livingston moved to Wood Green. And we did a lot of stuff there. Russell and I did a lot of demos in the old Livingston, which was in Barnet, and hence Barnet Dogs. And we did a lot of. I guess I'm not sure whether we were trying to make demos, or we were trying to make masters, or were we trying to make music? We were just playing and having a lot of fun. We did a lot of work there, and that was very much a time of our lives. So a lot of Russell's famous songs were sort of put together in Livingston.
I think in 1980 and 1981, the two albums. What's your favorite track, Bob, on the two albums? We can include Into the Fire as well, obviously, rather than just the Barnet Dogs, because the Barnet Dogs were on both albums, as I understand it.
I think Rennie.
Really? Okay.
I hope I haven't got this wrong, but Rennie Didn't Do It is on that album, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's the opening track. Yeah.
Thank goodness for that.
Well done.
That would have been embarrassing.
You've won tonight's Star Prize.
I think Rennie Didn't Do It was the one that I liked playing. I mean, it was rocking. It was really happening.
Mm.
And of course, we start with that in the live show.
Yes.
Which sort of gets us into the mood for what we're doing, and sort of shoehorns us in, and there we are. We're rocking, I suppose, would be the phrase.
Well, when you got titles like "She Said Yeah," I mean that's really sort of raw kind of. If you compare that to the Russell's previous album, which was at the Third Stroke, where there was some real intricate stuff. The guys on Toto playing, the big, fairly big production, and structured, like I say, structured songs and very, very, yeah, exactly.
Very
a big,
American, dare I say?
yeah, quite. quite.
But the Barnet Dogs album is really what Bob just said. It is rocking. It's really a rocking album. And look, Rinny didn't do it. Riding with the Angels. Riding with the Angels was covered so many times.
Yeah.
My favorite might be, well, It's Too Late or Beware.
You won't be happy till you see her again. When your blood runs cold like a sea of cocaine, and the note's gonna face it dead to your brain. And when you can't get her,
I would say Beware a little more. Yeah, that's
I don't recall
brilliant track.
ever playing Beware, you know. Maybe
Pardon?
someone could put me right on that. Live, that is to say.
I like the track Madman for the wrong reasons. I was driving my car and somebody hit me after, it was about 11 o'clock at night, and had it have been like a yard either side, it would have been particularly unpleasant, but the guy got arrested because he drank too much beer, and thankfully I hadn't. But that track was playing Madman when he hit me.
Oh, right.
And
Were you
wrote
in
my-
Abu Dhabi then?
And wrote my car off. No, I was
You
in
weren't?
Streatham, South London.
Oh, right.
Yes, but anyway, okay. So in terms of playing live, though, I mean, I think in terms of, I think we all know that Russ's live output has been sort of very much stop-start. So really, in terms of how many songs that you did over those off of the two albums, would there? You probably didn't do too many of them, actually, did you?
Well, time is what dictates how many songs you can do.
Exactly.
And I mean, with the Kinks, for example, we could be on the stage for 2 hours or maybe more if Ray decided he wanted to.
Mhm.
And so in those 2 hours, even if every song is 3 minutes, which they're mostly not, they're a little bit longer than that. That's how many songs you can get in. And of course, as Russell's been prodigious, you couldn't possibly do all of them in the same way as you couldn't do all of Ray's output at all.
Mm. Well, I mean, there are so many eras that you were instrumental, if I can use that as a bit of a pun, I suppose. But there are so many areas that we wanted to cover, and it's probably a good time to talk about how you, around that time, went into many recording sessions with other artists. And Sven, do you want? I mean, we've got a whole list of questions around those. I don't know whether you want to. I know you've got a couple of questions as well around
There's one
that
question
period.
I simply have to ask. Very sorry for it. So, as mentioned before, turn it on again. Let's turn it on again. There was a time when Peter Gabriel left a band,
Oh yeah.
Genesis, and Phil Collins invited you to join the band.
He did.
He did, yeah. How was that? How was the moment? I mean, Phil Collins saying, "Hey, Bob, can you play the drums in the band?"
And he broadcast the fact that he liked what I did, so that was good. We were playing. Argent were playing in Guildford. I can't remember the name of the theatre, but we were playing in Guildford.
It was the Civic Hall. Guildford
Okay.
Civic Hall. Well, I saw you at the Guildford Civic Hall. It might not be the same gig, but anyway.
Okay. Well, I looked across the stage when I got a chance to get my breath back, and I thought, it looks like Phil there. And lo and behold, it was Phil. And Phil said, "I'll give you a call." So he did, and he said he told me that Peter was leaving Genesis, and he'd like me to play drums. And I thought it's a bit weird. He's a drummer. Why would he want me in the band? But anyway, he phoned me up and offered me the gig. He said, "I have no idea whether this is going to work, but I'm going to sing." And up to then, the inference was that he hadn't sung so much and he was now going to sing more, which was hence he wanted me to play drums. So to cut to the chase, I was flattered, of course, but even nobody in the band was sure that it was going to happen, when it was going to work. I mean, because they were a tight-knit sort of unit with which really, in my humble opinion, revolved around Peter. So that was, I was very flattered, but it didn't happen. Whereupon, a little bit later on, Peter Gabriel asked me, was I busy? He came into drum store and said, are you busy? And I said, what, doing what? He said, playing. I said, well, when I can, yeah, if something comes along. So he said, would I play with him? So that was a bit of a surprise. And then Mike Rutherford took me aside and said, would I make an album with him? I said, yeah, where are you going to do it? And it was done at Fisher's Lane Farm, which aficionados will know it was Genesis studio. And so I turned up to do an album with Mike, which was at Fisher's Lane Farm, and I set my drums up in Phil's drum booth. Well, Phil's drum booth was very much glass and concrete and stone and all of those things. And so anybody playing drums in there would sound like Phil. So I was getting the sort of something in the air drum sound, whether I liked it or not, or whether the producer liked it or not. I mean, it was banging and crashing around, and I loved it. I mean, we drummers like that banging noise. But anyway, so I then did. I didn't ever do a gig with Mike, but that was quite a time for me with, you know, at least talking to Genesis. But cut to the chase, I didn't do the gig. There were a lot of things in the way that made it not happen. And Chester Thompson came along and he did the gig and made a good fist of it, as everybody tells me. I didn't go and see them. I don't know why, when Chester was in the band. So that was, I guess that was roughly around the same time, which if it were that time, that would mean that John Grimaldi and John Verity were in Argent and Russell was gone. But I can't tell you the date of it, but I can tell you what I had for breakfast. I had cereal.
Well, I would imagine the Mike Rutherford album, would that be Small Creeps Day?
Yeah, it's a fair cop, I don't know.
No, that's fine. Well, I mean, but
any of the titles, and I don't believe I ever got a record. It wasn't the sort of thing that happened, guys, you know, where you played on a record and the record company immediately sent it to you. Especially if it was an old record. They would wait to be asked if you deserved the gold record.
Well, that's
and
yeah, I mean, I was just going to say the whole Genesis thing, you know, people are probably listening to this with their mouths open thinking, like, my God, you know, and obviously it's a credit to you as to how the esteem that you were held by these excellent musicians. It must have been a real land of confusion for you at the time.
flattered. Of course, I was flattered. Who wouldn't be flattered? But I was flattered. I'm often flattered these days by people asking me to do things. Certainly, Ray and Dave, I was flattered by. I know we aren't planning. I don't think you're planning to talk about them yet, but I used to get butterflies when we went on the stage. When I went on the stage with Ray and Dave, and in the back of my mind, I knew I was thinking, "Hey, I'm playing You Really Got Me with Ray and Dave." And do you know the story of You Really Got Me?
No, we don't.
Oh, okay. The Roulettes with Adam Faith were playing at the Wimbledon Theatre, and we were doing a weekend variety. And I received a phone call on the Monday we started in the theatre from an American voice I didn't recognize. And this guy asked me if I could do a session on the Friday at IBC, and he wouldn't tell me who the band was, wouldn't tell me anything about it. So I said, yeah, okay, great. And I actually said for some reason, I had no need to do it. I said to Adam Faith, "Hey, Tell, I got a session on Friday." And he said, "You can't do it. You might be late for the gig." I said, "I won't. It's 10 o'clock session. I'll be done by 1. I'll get in the car and I'll be there hours before curtain up for the variety performance." So anyway, we debated it, and I didn't do that session, which turned out to be You Really Got Me.
You really got me going. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I can't sleep at night. Yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing. Oh yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I can't sleep at night. You really got me. You really got me. You really got me. See, don't ever set me free. I always wanna be by your side. Girl, you really got me now. You got me so I can't sleep at night. Yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing. Oh yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I can't sleep at night. You really got me. You really got me. You really got me. See, don't ever set me free. I always wanna be by your side. Girl, you really got me now. You got me so I can't sleep at night. Yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing. Oh yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I can't sleep at night. You really got me. You really got me. You really got me.
And and over the years, I've talked to people about, it goes da 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 da, but then there's this big bang which carries the whole thing off. Now I often think to myself, would I have played that, or what would I have done something a little bit more elegant? Would I have done, but I'd have a boom, or what would I have done? I probably wouldn't have gone bah. So anyway, I didn't play on it, which is a bit of a shame. And but of course I did get to play with the guys after that. So
It had a happy ending, that story, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, it did. Yeah, still didn't play on it, but I played it more times than
Yeah.
the guy who did play on it, if you see what I mean.
I
It
mean,
was pretty great.
this story is so crazy. You told us before how that came about, but it's so funny to hear. I mean, the Kinks were part of your life from 1984 until 1996, 97-ish. All of a sudden, you were a member of the Kinks. That's amazing, isn't it?
Well, yes, I guess so. But I, in my defense, Sven, I'd played with a few groovy people. You know, I'd played with Don McLean. I'd played with a lot, and we talked about Mike Rutherford and a lot of other guys I'd played with, but it was I wasn't overawed by it. I don't think I was ever overawed. But that said, I felt that I had a feeling in my stomach every time I went on with the Kinks, and a lot of that was brought on by we never knew what song was coming next. There would be, for example, a list on the floor, very nicely gaffer taped to my rostrum, and if we were lucky, the first one was the first one, but that was only if we were lucky. So if you can envisage an intro tape that went on and on and on, or it went on for a bit, which ended with da 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 da, and then we would come on, and not really knowing what the first song was going to be. And we wouldn't know until Ray, we might get the clue from the count-in, or we might get the clue from the way Ray looked at, but I mean, anyway, it was very, very interesting. And that was what made, or that was partly what made the Kinks so interesting, that you never knew what was coming next. And well, certainly Jim and I had a rapport, which of course had come through Argent and playing 9 45-minute spots a night and all of that sort of thing.
Sorry, guys.
That's Russ.
Hi, this is Russ Ballard, and you're listening to the Voices of Russ Ballard podcast.
That's the second time he's rung during we've been recording these podcasts. You know, the other time was when we were speaking to Mr. Thorpe.
Okay, so I've moved it all out of time, haven't I? I've got to the Kinks and shouldn't have got there yet.
No, that's fine, Bob. I mean, we can always come back to it, because I was dying to ask you a question about some drummer called Ringo Starr, and you know, there aren't many drummers that can say they worked with Ringo Starr, who, of course, in case anybody listening to this has been on the moon or somewhere like that, is a drummer himself. Now that really don't come easy. So how did that come about?
Well, that was a Russell thing. Russell was, I was going to say hired. I suppose that's the right word for it. Was hired, asked to make an album with Ringo, to write some songs, and to go to a studio called Sweet Silence, which was in Copenhagen, and do an album. So we all got together. I don't believe we rehearsed, but we might have done. If we had rehearsed, it would have been at Livingston. But I'll have to ask Russell that, whether we rehearsed. Anyway, we turned up in. Do you want the whole story? Okay, it's a good story. Okay,
of course we do. Of course we do. You don't even need to ask that question, Bob.
Okay, well, we were going to Copenhagen, and we got to the airport, and Chas Hodges was on it, Dave Winters was on it, John Verity was on it, I was on it, Ringo was on it, I think, and Russell was on it. That was it. So Russell had already written the songs, including On the Rebound, and we got to the airport. I went with Chas, who had a plastic Tesco's bag with him. Other supermarkets were available, of course, and in his plastic bag, there were either a pair of socks or a pair of underpants. I never got to work out which. So that was what he was taking to the. You know, we had no idea how long we were away for, bless you, Chaz. Anyway, so we got to the airport, and Chaz discovered he didn't have a passport, which was rather weird. And but he did have a driving license, so he managed to show them his driving license, and they let him on the plane. And the guy who was behind the desk had gone to school with me, and I hadn't seen him for years and years. And there he was, booking us on this plane. And for some reason, he wasn't paying too much attention, and we were there a day too early. So, but he put us on the plane because he wasn't paying enough attention. So we got to Copenhagen, sat in the airport, waiting to be picked up on the wrong day. So Chaz, being Chaz, said, "Why don't we have a beer while we're here?" So he said to the guy, "So what's your strongest beer?" So the guy behind the counter in the bar said, "Oh, it's Carlsberg, it's Elephant." Now, anybody who knows about Elephant, it is a very, very strong beer. So now then again, it comes in bottles. So Chaz said, "We'll have a pint each then." So we had 2 bottles each, and we're still not picked up. So the only other thing we could do is have another bottle each. So we did, and we're still not picked up. So it fell to my lot to I think I probably was the only one who could talk by this time. It fell to me to talk to Russell's manager and find out what had gone wrong. Where was the cab? And he said, "You're there on the wrong day." So that was a very auspicious start to the whole thing. But we had a great time doing it. And I think what Ringo wanted to do was play with Chaz. And he wanted Chaz to play Ringo's favorite songs, Red Sails in the Sunset, those sort of things. And everybody would have a good time. So when Ringo knows you, he says you can call him Richie. So I call him Richie, and Russell calls him Richie, and everybody else who was there that day. But a lot of drummers don't want to call him Richie. They want to call him Ringo because it's a sign of affection. Anyway, we did the album, had a great time, came home, and I don't know what I got on with. I was doing something completely different. It was another. I know it could have been Ian Matthews. I worked with Ian Matthews for a while, and it's a little known fact that Ian he moved to America, and he lived in Seattle, which was where the whole grunge thing began. So we are making an album or playing with him first, but what we're playing is garage music. It's not what you would expect from Ian Matthews. It's not Southern Comfort. It's not Woodstock. So we're playing. One of the songs was "I Survived the 70s," and it was "I Survived the 70s." So it really was neo-punk, or it was certainly grunge. And we did loads of songs along those lines, which were great to play. But we went to Wales to make an album with Ian. And what I remember most about it is that we were in the mountains of Wales, and every now and again we'd be recording, and a fighter jet would come over us, or 2 fighter jets who were training, making a terrible racket, which of course made it that take completely useless. So I was with Ian Matthews as well, and that was great fun too. I mean, everybody in it was fun. There were a lot of fun times.
It sounds it. How the hell did Chaz then, if he got waved through at Heathrow or wherever you took off in the UK, how did he get away with it in Copenhagen and still not having his passport?
Don't know. I think you probably could in Copenhagen. Maybe you can do that sort of thing in Scandinavia. Okay. I mean, he did have some documentation. He did have I was going to say he had a freedom pass, but of course it was years before freedom passes. He must have had a driving license with him.
Okay. Well, we've got. Yeah, I mean, we're
standing back. I didn't want to be implicated.
I think it's a good idea. That sounds a good idea. So somebody else that you came across or were very friendly with. Well, yeah, in actual fact, we'd love to know how friendly you were with Keith Moon. But you know,
Oh.
Keith Moon named you in an interview in 1972 as one of his favorite drummers. So that's not a bad.
Well, to tell you the truth, Streety, I was hoping to be his favorite drummer. You know, not one of them. But anyway, cut to the chase. We would bump into each other. We had mutual friends, and I had the drum store. And Mooney loved coming in the drum store. So he would park the Rolls outside the drum store on a triple yellow line. You know, and that was the days when you had triple yellow lines. I don't think you get them anymore, do you? But they're triple yellow lines for a reason, because they're dangerous to park on. And so Mooney would come into the shop, and he would immediately say, "Dear boy, come and listen to this track I've just put down." So I'd go into the roller, and he'd get out a bottle of Remy, and you know, at 12 o'clock at lunchtime, I'd be having Remy with him, which was pretty normal for him. It was pretty abnormal for me, though. So Mooney and I had a rapport, and he lived pretty close to me when I was in Winchmore Hill, and he would he'd come back from the speakeasy late at night, early in the morning, 3 or 4 o'clock, knock on my door and say, "Dear boy, what about a cup of tea?" And I say, "Keith, have you seen the time?" "Yes, let's have a cup of tea." So he'd come in and we'd have a cup of tea. So, and this went on. He did it several times, and the other people living in the house weren't particularly impressed by it, even though he was Keith Moon. So he moved down the road, and we would bump into each other quite a lot. And there is one story about Argent and The Who and Colin Blunston and various other notables were playing in Rotterdam. It was a big gig in Rotterdam. And we were all on, everybody, and then we all got a plane home the next day. But anyway, Mooney is sitting in his dressing room, sitting in his leather chair, which, believe it or not, had its own flight case. It went everywhere with him, and he's sitting in it with a bottle. Well, when I looked at him, he had a snare drum on one side and a crate of Remy on the other side. And he said, "Ah, dear boy, I've been waiting for you." And he passed a bottle of Remy to me and said, "This is for you, and the rest of them are for me." So I don't know how many bottles of Remy you get in a crate. If it's 12, then that left him with 11. If it's 10, that left him with 9. And he said, "And I want you to have this snare drum." And I said, "I can't, Keith." Anyway, it was a very interesting snare drum with a real pedigree, and the fact that Mooney had owned it was part of that. And I was too embarrassed to take it. How stupid is that? And it's something that I've regretted ever since. But that was a time.
That's lovely. I think you mentioned Rod Argent there. I've got a feeling that the last album that Keith Moon said before he sadly passed away was the Who Are You album.
All right.
And Rod Argent played keyboards on the title track. You hear that sort of Moog synthesized. Yeah, he did.
What, Streety? I didn't know that. I wonder if Russell knows that. Anyway.
Yeah, he did definitely. I think it's the only track that he played on.
Yeah.
So perhaps we should play that now. What do you think, Sven? Who Are You by The Who?
Who Are You? That is
by The
such a
Who.
great idea. And after that, we will be back with Bob Henrit on the Voices of Russ Ballard podcast.
That was Who Are You by The Who, featuring Rod Argent on keyboards. And we've just been talking about all that with none other than Bob Henrit. Bob, it's great to have you on the show.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, as someone once said.
See what I did there?
Yes, clever. That's so clever. So listen, you touched upon the Henrit's drum store in Wardour Street. Love to hear a little bit about that, because I know that it was quite apart from the Keith Moon story, which is just for that alone. But how did that come about? And also, was it alongside Rod's keyboard shop, because he had a keyboard shop at around the same time?
Yeah, we were both in the same part of town, the West End of. So it was. We were. I was going to say we're neighbours, but only if neighbouring is half a mile away or something like that. But we were both in Soho, and I had a partner in drum store. Well, I had several partners, but one of them owned Livingston Studios, and also owned the building we were in, which was how we managed to put ourselves in it. And above us in the building were the Who, and above the Who were the Rolling Stones. So it was and on the other side of the road was the Ship, which was a pub, which was essential in those days, especially if you were a punk. So there was punk came along, and producers would come running in, pulling their heads off, coming out of Marquee, where they'd be producing a punk band, and they will have done one take, and the drummer would not want to do another take. That seems to be the way it was. So he would only do one take, and then that's it. I'm off down the pub. Well, the producer wanted to do something. He wanted to make a bloody album or a record or whatever it was. So he came into drum store and said, "Have you got any drummers in here?" And we said, "Yes, it's a fair cop. We're all drummers. It's a drum shop." So one of us would go back to the Marquee and start playing. When we had no idea who we were playing with, but to us, as you can imagine, it was all rock and roll. There was nothing different about our way of playing it. The only difference, of course, was the hair and perhaps the leather jacket. And so I managed to play on lots of records without having any idea who they were, or even whether they were successful. But so that was because we were so close. Now, my partner in that, one of my partners was a guy called Jerry Evans, who used to be and in the time had been the road manager for the Undertakers, who were one of my favorite Liverpool bands, and one of Russell's, if I remember rightly. So we decided to have a drum shop, and then somebody suggested to Rod, "Well, why don't you do a keyboard shop?" So they did. We were in Wardour Street, and they were across the road, down Charing Cross Road, and that went along quite nicely for 4 or 5 years. And then, but unfortunately, we were murdered by punk music. Punks were lovely guys, but they didn't want to spend any money. And I interviewed Rat Scabies, who is Chris to me, believe it or not, and he always was Chris to me. And I said to him, I said, "Chris, why did you have the names that you had?" And he said, "Well, we had those names because we were on the dole. And if we'd used our real names, we wouldn't have got our dole money. So we made up names like Rat Scabies and Johnny Rotten and so on. And that meant that we still had money coming in. And believe it or not, that money, which was donated by the British government, of course, if you look at it logically, helped punk music to get started. And of course, it wasn't just punk music, it kicked music up the backside. Music had, in a way, become, it wasn't stadium rock because we hadn't started playing in stadiums, but it was definitely theatre rock. But the punks didn't care where they played. If they'd play in a pub, they'd play in a youth club, much like we had before we made it. But the punks just came along and did that and had a whale of a time. So I spoke to Rat, who is actually I called him Rat. I should have said Chris, but I spoke to Chris, and we had a great discussion, which I write for a drummer's website, so that was used in the drummer's website. So anyway, there I am, the proud owner of a drum store, and it was very interesting because we had downstairs, we had a hire department, which was downstairs, and downstairs was also a bar. Now, nobody had thought stupidly to put a bar in a drum shop, because it's crazy. People are going to come and drink, and of course they did. And but that was the sort of ambience of it, and having the ship next door, that was also a good place to go and have a drink. Not that we needed a drink in those days. So drum store was successful until punk came along, and punks honestly would come in and say, have you got any secondhand drumsticks? And have you got any used drum heads? And of course, those are things that you just don't want a used version of. You want a new version. And so I once asked one of them, oh no, actually it was Rat. I said, what did you do with all that money you had? He said, what money? I said, well, the money you got for making records. Everybody was getting the same amount of money to make the record, and you must have been getting the same as Argent and everybody else to pay for the expense. He said, I never saw any of it. He said, I don't think any punks did. They were manipulators.
Yeah.
So that was drum store, which was a great place to hang out, and I would go up there a great deal, get the train to Oxford Circus and walk to Wardour Street, and I'd be in my kingdom, if you like. I mean, it's a bit big time to say it, but it was my place, and my name was above the door. So what was good about it is that every day you'd see somebody famous. Somebody'd wander in, and Buddy Rich, for example, wandered in. Mooney was always there, and when I say always there, he was there a lot, and yeah, it was a great hangout place.
Some more brilliant days for you, clearly. Listen, before I hand over to Sven for next question, I just want to mention, because because it's sad, and also because there's a Russ link, but it's just been announced that the Bay City Rollers lead singer Les McKeown has sadly passed away at age 65. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but it just come up on my screen. We're recording this on a Thursday afternoon, so April the 22nd. So, but I know that the Bay City Rollers covered "Are You Cuckoo" of Russell.
Yeah,
so
they did.
I'm throwing that in. So that's sad news. Legend from the 70s.
There is there.
You think of it, you build it up, you tear it down. You think you're a group, know how to move, look like a clown. Without a doubt, when you get out, you're singing your place. A guy that is slick, who can be quick, who's got a good face. What's in his head? Might as well be there. Not like he's down, he had to spend. could be a tax. Standing a curiosity to you if you're a success. You're in the hand, just think of that, same as the rest. But you know fate can't calculate.
There is another connection with us, but I can't remember what it is. Now that's embarrassing, isn't it? But
There's lots of
all I
connections,
know,
so no need to be embarrassed.
the girl who ran Kinks Studios was seeing Les, and yeah, that's a shame. That's very young, isn't it?
65 these days is extremely young, isn't it? So yeah, it's sad news while we're talking.
Somehow it seems too young to have been in the Bay City Rollers.
Quite.
I mean, I would have expected him to have been in his 70s because that's what. I mean, anybody who was around in the 60s. I know that the Bay City Rollers weren't, or not till the end of it, but anybody who was around in the 60s has to be of a certain age now, because the 60s is 60 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, you know, you can't put too many years on that. I mean, you can't really nobody really started playing before 15, certainly not professionally. Even Rick Allen. Rick Allen used to come in would come into the shop, and he would come down from Yorkshire on the train to come to the shop, and we knew him, and we'd have fun with him. And I think he was 15 then. And then, of course, I'm just writing something about him as it happens, about not necessarily about the accident, about him and how and what he's achieved since. Because I mean, that must be the worst thing that could happen to a drummer, to lose.
Yeah. Well, Sven, I'm going to hand over to you. Moving on, I'm going to hand over. I know you've got a question that you've been dying to ask.
Oh.
Well, there are so many questions.
That's true. Very true. Yeah.
And so few answers. I'll try though.
I try. I try.
Be gentle, Sven.
Good questions for our listeners. Bob, you work with so many big names in the industry. So Roger Daltrey, Michael Finelli.
Oh yeah.
Jeff Beck, Adam Faith, of course, Mike Berry, Francie Conway. Let's say hi to Francie. His latest album, Hidden Gems, is just out, and to me, it's a killer.
All right.
And Leo Sayer, Hidden Gems, and Leo Sayer were featured in the Russ Ballard newsletter. And
yes.
Dave Williams, so hi to Dave and to Sue. Dave wrote a lovely article about this. So these guys were all heavyweights in rock music or pop music. And then back to the heavyweights you were part of from 1984 to 1996. That's it. So the Kinks, a lot of ups and downs. Again, how was this time for you? You know, Word of Mouth was the first record with you, peaking at position 57 in the US charts, and the Kinks were especially popular in the States. So you toured the States up and down.
Yes, I mean, it was hugely popular, and we would go over. I was mulling this over in my head yesterday. How many tours have I done of America? And certainly every few months, every 3 months maybe, we would go over and do an American tour, and then we come back and make a record and maybe do something in Europe, and then the whole cycle would start again, and that went on for, was it 13 years, 12 years, 13 years, whatever it is, and there was a real pattern to it, but I mean, it was a magic time for me. I am an Americanophile. I have no idea how you say that word, but I can only think it's Americanophile. And I really like being there. And I enjoy everything about it. I enjoy wandering around. I enjoy doing it with my wife, actually going to America. And we've done a few things there. And we're now catching up on things that I've done and she hasn't done. So there's a book coming out, God willing, called Have You Come Far? And that's about touring with my wife and the family, and so it'll be Kerala, it'll be China, it'll be all the places we've gone to. And there's another book which is called On the Road Again, which is about being in bands and being on the road and enjoying it or not. Now, I loved it, but I know a lot of musicians don't like being on the road. And for me, if you don't like being on the road, that's the formula for disaster, because part of what you're supposed to be doing is being on the road and entertaining and soaking up the atmosphere, if you like. So we kept on going, and it was, we had various sort of things that happened, I'm not sure. We would find ourselves, we started out, I'll start again. We had dancers. Ray Davies's wife was a ballet dancer. And she was a prima ballerina at for the Irish, or the Royal Irish Ballet, which I was surprised was still called the Royal Irish Ballet. So she was proper. And so Ray wrote a song for them, and we backed them. And it wasn't an ordinary song, as you can imagine. I mean, these girls were on point. There were only two of them, but they were on point, and we backed them. So it was a very jazzy thing we were doing, and that went on for quite some time too. But that was another sort of string to Ray's bow. Ray I don't know where, he obviously decided he wanted to see what was going on, and what he could add to the show. So we did. It was very weird to think that these girls were on point. They weren't just dancing. They were doing proper ballet dancing, pliés and all that stuff. Actually, that was a bit stupid what I said about pliés, but certainly on point and demi-point. It was a very interesting thing to do, and it was, for us, it was interesting to be backing them, because the song that Ray wrote for them, well, it was a tune, had more 5/4 and 4/4 and 3/4 and 6/8 in it than any other song I've ever played, So that was something that happened in the Kinks. But other than that, we just kept going, and we enjoyed ourselves, and we certainly toured America a lot and had a load of fun, some of which I can't talk about.
Sure. Who joined the Kinks first? Was it you or Bob that joined the Kinks first? Sorry,
Jim.
You or Jim that
Jim
joined
did.
the Kinks first?
Jim did.
Yeah, we had been. Well, he joined them directly. Oh no, he joined them from Phoenix. That's right. We put Phoenix together immediately after Argent, and Jim was captured by the Kinks, and later on he decided that he was going to he'd like me to be in the band, and Ray said, do you know anybody who would fit? And Jim said, I do, actually. And he and I, Phoenix were no more, although we still did the odd pub gig, because that was Jim's scene. Jim never stopped doing work with other people. He played with Lonnie Donegan, he played with a lot of people. I didn't play with Lonnie Donegan, which was it's been one of the things that I've regretted. Lonnie asked me to join him, and something happened, and I couldn't do it. And I really wish I'd done it. It would have been a great time. Anyway, Jim had joined the Kinks, and the next thing is Ray asked him for a recommendation. And did I talk of this? Probably didn't. We were doing a gig. We had a band which was called GB Blues Company, and it was a rhythm and blues band with a horn section. We were happening. This was great. We did things like horn versions of Purple Haze, if you can imagine that. And it was sublime. And we did that. And if I was away, say with Ian Matthews or whoever it was, then somebody else would take my place, but Jim would be there. And if Jim, to keep it all together, and if Jim were away with the Kinks, then I would, then we'd get another bass player in, and I would keep it all together. And it was great fun for a number of years. It really was. And anyway, get to the point, Henrit. We were playing at a gig in North London in a pub called the Torrington. And I looked out into the audience and I thought, that looks like Ray. It's Ray Davies. He's in the audience. What's he doing here? And I then got on with what I was doing. There was a lot to play in GB Blues Company. And I got on with what I was doing. And at the end, Ray walked over, and it was him. And he said, what are you doing at the moment? I said, well, I've got all sorts of things to do. I said, why? He said, I'd like you to make an album with us. So I said, oh, great, I'd love to. I said, what about Mick Avery? And Ray said, oh, he's not making this one. This is a different sort of album. So we made the album, me, Jim, Ian Gibbons on keyboards, and Ray and Dave. And at the end of it, I wasn't sure whether the sessions had finished. This was word of mouth. And I said, I phoned Ray. I said, Ray, have you finished with me yet? Because I've got, somebody's invited me to do a tour. And he said, you can't do a tour, you're in the Kinks. So and that was my introduction.
You could have told me, yeah.
Yeah, well, and then 2 days later, we're rehearsing for an American tour. Now, I wonder at what juncture Ray would have told me, oh, well, there's an American tour you're doing as well, because time was flying by. Anyway, cut to the chase. We went to America, and that became my first American tour with the Kinks, and was followed by a great many other tours. I once said to Jim, we did, this was, it was the Roulette's 50th anniversary, something like that. And we decided to do a gig in my local pub called the King and Tinker. And the idea behind it was that it would be a summer night, the sun would be shining, we'd be playing in the pub, the windows would be open, and the overflow people would be in the car park. And I mean, there was no reason why it should have been like that, but that's how it went. Lo and behold, that's what happened. And afterwards, Russell came, and afterwards, obviously, at the end of it, that was, funnily enough, Russell and John Verity sang together. And I can't remember any other time that they did it, and that must be the last time they did it. And I think they might have done Hold Your Head Up together. But anyway,
wow.
I went home, and I was sitting sitting exactly where I'm sitting now. And I was going to say I was wired. I was really up, and I wasn't really having a drink. Anyway, I was sitting there thinking, I wonder how many gigs I've done in my life. So I got a calculator from the bureau and started totting it all up, and it came to 20,000. So, I mean, a lot of that was when we were with Adam Faith, we do 3 gigs a day. And when we were with Argent, we would go to Germany and do 9 gigs a day. So for 2 or 3 weeks. So it didn't take long to add up with those sort of numbers. Anyway, I was talking to Jim the next day. I said, well, it went well last night, Jim, didn't it? He said, oh, yeah. I said, I was adding up how many gigs I'd done. He said, how many? I said, 20,000. He said, no way. Jim often disagreed with me, but I would always bounce an idea or bounce a statement off him. And he would always, nah, it's not, no. So Jim didn't think we'd done 20,000, but my humble opinion, we did. So, we were, our thing was doing gigs. I was invited to join Mike Cotton's band. The Mike Cotton band were a Dixieland band in the 60s, and Jim played with them. Jim played bass, Mike Cotton played trumpet, and Boat played trombone, and Derek Griffiths played guitar. Anyway, we were doing lots and lots and lots of gigs around the idea was we'd go all over Europe, but ultimately there were pressures of doing other gigs that meant that we couldn't do it. But we were really into these gigs, and Mike Cotton's band ultimately, at Jim's request, joined the Kinks. There was a time when they had a horn section, and then it was the Mike Cotton sound. And I wasn't in it then, but I'm guessing it was really good. And there were songs that the horns really fitted into, like, I'm just trying to think, Demon Alcohol, for example, which I think Demon Alcohol was actually made with a horn section in mind anyway. So we played together, and then we joined the Kinks, and then unfortunately we were away, both of us were away together, which wasn't such a good thing, because the rhythm section was not us. It was another couple of guys who were perfectly good, but they weren't me and Jim. So I would have, every now and again, I'd ask him a question. The reason that a band can't write an autobiography, I know it sounds ridiculous about an autobiography for a band, but they can't, because they wouldn't agree on the smallest of subjects. Everybody sees things in a band in a slightly different way, and so books should be written by one person, I think.
That seems very logical to me.
Yeah, indeed. Bob, I've been dying to ask you, Bob, about what's your favourite Kinks song?
Yeah, my favourite Kinks song is, it should be "You Really Got Me," but it's actually, oh gosh, what the hell? Lola is the one that I like to play more. And the reason I liked it is that we would play it halfway through, whereupon the lights would come on the punters in the hall, and Ray would stop the band, but he wouldn't stop me. And so I would be playing boof, daff, boof, boof, that bit, and Ray would then start shouting Lola, and they would come back with Lola, because that was what they were supposed to be doing.
She walked up to me and she asked me to dance. I asked her her name, and in a dark brown voice she said Lola.
And so I was in charge of, 10,000 people was normal. 20,000 people was a bigger audience, and there could be 30,000 people, and I would be in charge of them. And so I'd be playing the drums, and no other music would be going on except Ray would be shouting Lola. And so I would be in charge of 10, 15, whatever, thousand people. And I discovered that I could make them move in a day. If I just changed something very subtly, not enough to blow the rhythm, then I could actually make them move in a slightly different way. And it really was, it was very powerful. I know I won't tell you. I have a story about, we were in Nuremberg, and I went to the to Zeppelinplatz, and I stood on the dais there, and I got the same feeling as when I was playing Lola on my own in front of 10,000 or 15,000 people. And I was thinking, it has to be the same feeling. So anyway, whether or not you want to use that, guys, it's up to you. But I always felt that it was just, well, of course it was surreal. Everything, well, rock and roll is surreal, isn't it, really, I suppose? So anyway, that was, I think Lola was my favorite, but I just loved all of them. And I liked it when at the end of the show, Ray would do Louie Louie or Louie Louie. I have no idea how, even now, how that's pronounced, but I knew how it went, and most drummers didn't know how it went. And it goes da 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 da. So that's the drum, and da da da, blah blah, or just blah, and you're in. And most drummers didn't do it like that. They didn't realize that it came in so abruptly. So I went out of my way to play it properly, of course.
Wow.
Well, that's really good. I mean, I was going to, Sven, I think we've got probably, before we move on from the Kinks, one last question about sort of 1995 and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because we can't. So I'll let Sven ask the question, but I'm just sort of tentatively mention it because it must have been absolutely amazing. So we've been really looking forward to asking you this question. Sven.
Okay.
Ian, I know this is one of your questions, so please ask it. Really, you're dying to ask this question. It's a clever one. I like it.
Well, I mean, just for the listeners, that if there is anybody that doesn't know, that the Kinks were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995, and Bob achieved a unique, ambition, or call it what you like, playing at the inaugural, I think it was the inaugural Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. Yep. But not only that, he wouldn't stop in there. Basically, he played alongside the likes of Chuck Berry, James Brown, Bruce Springsteen. So, it doesn't get much better than that, I don't think. So we want to hear about that. We want to hear the stories. We want to hear whatever you want to tell us about that occasion. We'd love to hear more about.
Well, everybody and his dog were on it. I mean, everywhere you looked was another one of your heroes. The only one who wasn't there was Elvis, because he had left the building, as they say. So he wasn't there. But everywhere you looked, there was another one of your heroes. And we flew over on Concorde, and you can't really do much better than that. But we flew on Concorde, went straight to the gig, and did the gig. But I had years before, I'd been, when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is a building really, was mooted by all the record companies. They were putting it together. Somebody came to me and said, I think I must have had Drum Store still. He said, you know all about music, about instruments, don't you? This was an American guy whose name I've forgotten. And I said, well, I suppose so. I'm flattered that you think I do, but why are you asking? He said, well, we're doing this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we'd like to put in it all as many artifacts as we can find. and they said, we'd like you to help us. I said, well, what sort of things do you think you're looking for? So they gave me a list, which was the 4 tracks that have been joined together for the Beatles recording when they didn't have an 8-track machine there. And so they just wanted everything they could get. And I said, what's the budget? And they said, there isn't a budget. I thought, I couldn't imagine going to EMI saying, will you give me those Beatles recording machines? So in the end, I got on with something else, but it did come to pass, and people gave them all of these wonderful bits and pieces. And it's a very interesting museum. And the one thing it doesn't have is Lonnie Donegan. And the interesting thing is that we know, us 3, that Lonnie Donegan was the key to it all. Without Lonnie Donegan, the Beatles wouldn't have happened. The Stones, I mean, just about everybody wouldn't have happened, because we all began. I mean, all of our guitar heroes began playing Lonnie Donegan songs, but he's not in it. And I asked the question. I said, why is Lonnie Donegan not here? And they said, who's Lonnie Donegan? Which was a bit of a surprise. So I don't know if Lonnie's in there now. I haven't been there since whatever that date was, but that was a wonderful time. And I think Banging On has got I found out somewhere how many million people had seen the show, because it was simulcast. It was simulcast at a time when simulcast was just coming in. I don't suppose they call it that anymore, do they? And but tens of millions of people watched it. And the interesting thing is you could be, if you were on it and you weren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you had to play a song by somebody who was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And of course we were in it, so we just did, I think we probably did Lola, maybe not. Certainly we did You Really Got Me.
What about, are there any other names that I haven't, well, sorry, there are many other names that I haven't mentioned, but are there any others there that spring to mind?
Well,
and maybe any backstage stories. In fact, while you're thinking about that, Bob, we're going to take a quick break on the Voices of Russ Ballard, and we'll be back with legendary Bob Henrit with some more stories about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in just one moment.
I'm not content to be with you in the daytime. Girl, I want to be with you all of the time. The only time I feel alright is by your side. Girl, I want to be with you all of the time, all day and all of the night. All day and all of the night. All day and all of the night. I believe that you and me last forever. Oh yeah, all day and night I'm yours, leave me never. The only time I feel alright is by your side. Girl, I want to be with you all of the time, all day and all of the night. All day and all of the night.
Hello, everybody. You're back with the Voices of Russ Ballard, and more to the point, back with Bob Henrit talking about his time in the Kinks and specifically about the amazing Rock and Roll Hall of Fame event. Bob, before we leave the Kinks, are there any more stories you'd like to tell everybody? We don't want to miss any stories you've got in your archives.
Well, how long have you got? But yeah, there is a fabulous story. Ray was very good at, as I said, there would be a list, and if you were lucky, the first one on the list would be the first song you played. But that was by no manner of means how it went. And if Ray wanted to do something different in the song, or do a different song even, he would. And there were instances where he would play a song that I'd never played before, and forget that Mick, well, it wasn't Mick, it was me. So, but I mean, I would make a fist of it, or at least I'll rephrase that. Me and Jim would make a fist of it. We'd hear what he was doing. He would show Jim what the key was by holding his guitar up, and we would look at one another, and I would do a very obvious fill, and we'd be in. And as I said earlier, there could be thousands of people out there, and there was one particular moment when Ray was actually writing a song, and it was called, believe it or not, Regatta My Arse, it was called. And we were playing at a regatta in Cincinnati, down by the water. And it was a huge gig. And Ray was writing this song then and there. And we just joined in, and it became, interestingly enough, it became the Kinks fans' favorite record. And it somehow found its way out as a demo or whatever, or a live version, and there it was. But there is a story which always gets me in the throat, really. We were playing in Wisconsin, and we were there to do a gig called Jurassic Jam. And I think it's still probably going on, even all those years after we did it. And we left the hotel, which where we were is where Harry Houdini came from, believe it or not. Harry Houdini wasn't English at all. He was an American. Anyway, before I left the room, I was watching the TV, and striped along the bottom was the fact that Conway Twitty had died. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I must tell the guys. They've probably left their rooms by now. So we were sitting in the Winnebago. It was an open air gig, which the Winnebago being our dressing room. And I said to nobody in particular, Conway Twitty's died. It's a shame, isn't it? And everybody said, oh, blimey. Yeah, it is. And we went on stage. We went through all the songs, and halfway through the set, Ray turned round and played a major chord, ring, and went, people see us everywhere.
Everywhere. They think you really care. But myself I can't deceive. I know it's only make believe. My one and only prayer is that someday you'll care. My hopes and my dreams come true. My one and only you. No one will ever know how much I love you so. My only prayer will be that someday you'll care for me, but it's only make believe. My hopes and my dreams come true. My life I'd give for you. My heart a wedding ring. My all, my everything. My heart I can't control. You rule my very soul. My only prayer will be that someday you'll care for me, but it's only make is that someday you'll care. My hopes, my dreams come true. My one and only you. No one will ever know how much I love you so. My prayers, my hopes, and my schemes. You are my every dream, but it's only make
And we were, none of us were expecting it's only make believe. I mean, we just haven't. And the chances, I mean, Jim and I had played it in various bands, but we didn't have to have, you know, we were just fortunate that we had. And so we knew it. And people see us everywhere, they don't read it. But it's all rap, bum, 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 bum. And all of a sudden, the audience, which were thousands strong, realized they knew that Conway Twitty had died, and it was a sea of lighters. This was the time when people would burn their fingers with lighters at the gig, you know, or at least I thought they'd burn their fingers. So that was a real interesting time, you know, and but nothing was discussed. Nobody knew what we were doing. Well, we knew the song ultimately, but we didn't know we were going to play it. And Ray was very capable of doing that. When I joined, I was interviewing a guy who had played with the Army Air Force Band during the war. And he had a drum shop in New York, so we had a real rapport. And I was talking to him, and he had played with the Army Air Force Band, which was the Glenn Miller Band. And every night, Glenn Miller would, so the guys wouldn't get stale, Glenn Miller would put a different intro and a different outro to all of the songs. So they couldn't, you know, sort of go to sleep. And I made the mistake of telling Ray this, which was a big mistake. Ray eventually started doing that. And it was real fun. And you had to be on your mettle. And when I joined the Kinks, I realized this was not a drunken drummer's gig, you know, because you never knew what was coming. You never knew how long it was going to be. You never knew what would follow it or any of that stuff. So, I would have the top off a bottle of Heineken before we went on, just the, you know,
relax.
Swig. And then halfway through, when everything was going swingingly, if that's the word, or is it swimmingly, I'd dare to have another swig. So,
well, I think fair play to you, because I can only assume that some lesser drummers probably wouldn't have lasted very long in the Kinks, but it sounds a fantastic period in your career, Bob. And
well, thank you for saying that, Streety. But interestingly enough, all of it was a fantastic interlude in my career. I mean, Adam Faith, sure. I was 16 when I joined him, and that should never have happened. 16-year-old guy backing a pop star. And then when Russell came along, was he 17? It was a year later, and he's always been a year younger than me.
Well, anyway, here's something that a lot of people probably won't know. I want to talk about the tale here of two Ivors.
Oh, right.
So I'm going to hand over to Sven because I know I told him, and like him, like me, we both didn't know this. So this is a question about the two Ivors. Over to you, Sven.
Thank you, Ian. So, yeah, it was in 1992. You received an Ivor Novello Award for services to music. Amazing. Well, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
To me, that was amazing to hear. You got an Ivor Novello Award.
They're very heavy too, aren't they? Very heavy.
Well, they seem to go rusty. Jim's.
Oh my God, no!
I probably shouldn't say this, but well, it's a long time ago. Yeah, we might have to strike that out. I think perhaps we shouldn't say that. Cut. Anyway, The Ivor Novello Awards ceremony was at the Dorchester, I think, in London. There were a lot of award ceremonies were there. And I think I was sitting with Brian Bennett. Brian Bennett is not just a drummer by any manner of means. Aside from having written Summer Holiday,
We're all going on a summer holiday. No more working for a week or two. Fun and laughter on a summer holiday. No more worries for me.
he did a lot of music for films, a lot of music for TV series and all that. And Brian went up before us and he said, and he held the award in his hand and he said, not bad for a drummer, eh? And of course it wasn't bad for a drummer. So there have been several things, the awards that we've had. There was an award for Unit 4+2, which was the Fry's Shooting Star Award. And I'm not sure what it was for, but I know I got one, and I'm not sure how I got one, but I am the owner of one, the proud owner of one for Concrete and Clay. And of course, then there was the odd gold record as well.
Yeah, I think there's one behind you there, isn't it? A gold record.
There's one over there.
Yeah, I can just see it. Not very good for radio to say those sort of things, is it really?
No.
Because people can't do that. So that's the and congratulations for that, and so everybody knows about that. So I just thought when I was redoing our research, I thought, Ivor Novello, and I came across this Ivor Arbiter, if I pronounced that correctly. So here's the two Ivors. So tell us about the second Ivor.
For the second Ivor, I got a phone call from a guy who ran Sabian Cymbals in Canada, Meductic. And he said, Ivor Arbiter is coming to Meductic to see the factory and basically have a good time, a jolly as it were. And he said, have you got any good stories that I can use? So I said, yeah, I could probably dredge some up. I wasn't working for Ivor at the time, or with Ivor rather. And so I gave him the stories and Ivor came back. Oh, and also my pal said, do you know what, if you're gonna have a biography, Henrit would be the person to do it for you. So Ivor came back and he was very pleased by the stories that I had related to my pal and called me to the office and said, would you like to write my biography? So I said, yeah, why not? And he and I did confession 2 or 3 times a week, and he would tell me everything that had happened, and some of the stories were absolutely hair-raising and hilarious as well at the same time. And he said, would I be interested? And I said, yeah, of course I would. So I started the book. And it was the time when AT drums, which were advanced tuning, the ones that had the single screw tuning, had just, well, they hadn't come out. They were about to be, they were about to start messing around with the way of doing it and working out how it could go and everything. And Ivor said, would you like to be part of this? And I said, what would I do? I'm a drummer. I'm sort of in the Kinks. The Kinks, nobody knew who was in the Kinks then. If anybody was in the Kinks, I mean, if Ray had phoned up and said, right, we've got another tour, then everybody would have dropped everything they were doing and put their Kinks clothes on, as it were. So we started, he asked me if I'd be part of it. And I really liked the idea of it. I thought that the single screw tuning, Sven, was a very clever piece of equipment. But unfortunately, just like a lot of new inventions, musicians don't like change. They want it to be like it was before. They don't want a new version of it. I mean, for example, Sven, you all know this. Why has there been no 5-string Telecaster? I mean, I would have thought from a marketing point of view, that would be perfect. And in the same way, why did Fender never make a Holy guitar? And
Exactly.
why did Fender not make Jim's guitar, which had a bass on the bottom and a Strat on the top? And I never saw it. You could take it apart and it would be a Strat and it would be a precision.
The double neck one. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So,
Yeah.
but Fender didn't do that. So, and mainly because people don't like change. Musicians are. So the drum set was successful on certain levels, and it certainly got me going around the world to show it off and everything. And of course, I had an input with it and make it what it was. And so that was Ivor, and he was a much larger than life character. You remember him, Sven, do you?
Yeah.
So he was a much larger than life character. So
So,
that's
I mean,
about it. Really, with
Yeah,
Ivor.
no, that's useful. I mean, I think we've got, when we get towards the end, we've got some really we've got some fun questions for you to signpost that. But before we get there, you've done lots of in recent years. I'm gonna call it. I think, Sven, you'd agree in this category. We've got things like the autobiography, the Banging On, and for anybody that hasn't read it, they should make sure they do. I'm going to read it
Get
again
your copy now.
after talking to you. I'm going to read it again, actually. And the
Right,
and
I think that's great.
but you do travel logs. You do, the write for Rhythm, Modern Drummer, Rimshot, or you have, and you've got the Mike Dolbeer and all those things. So you're keeping busy. So feel free to tell us a little bit about, that side of things in terms of your writing skills and maybe your plans for the future, because this is the shameless plug moment as well. If there's anything you want to plug.
Okay. Well, I started writing when I was on the trolley bus going to school, because Russell and I would have been rehearsing the night before, and I wouldn't have got my homework done. So I would do it on the bus, the trolley bus, and I'd hand it in. And I went to a Jesuit school, and it wasn't the sort of place where that sort of behavior was accepted. It wasn't at all acceptable. So I went with Clem to school, and Clem Cattini, and he says he was the most punished boy at the school, but I really thought it was me. But suffice it to say, we were both punished royally. That made me interested in writing. And then Beat Instrumental came along, and Beat Instrumental was the first music magazine that wasn't just a bunch of adverts. And so I would be writing about drums and drummers, and as I do, and that was for Beat Instrumental, which was in the 60s. Yeah, it was the 60s, of course it was. And then, as far as writing was concerned, I was having my teeth extracted. I was having wisdom teeth out, funnily enough, and sitting next to a guy who had been the editor of Beat Instrumental. And he said, "What are you doing now?" I said, "Well, whatever." He said, "Well, Beat Instrumental's no more. We're doing this new thing called International Musician. Would you like to write for that?" I said, "Of course I would." So the next thing, I'm writing for International Musician about the same things, drums and drummers and drumming. And that went on for 75 to 92, 75 to 92 years. It was years. And, I really, more or less. So I enjoyed writing for it and got to go around the world looking at drums and going to factories and gigs and everything. And I was getting these because it seemed like I was the only person who knew what he was talking about, or if I wasn't the only person who knew what he was talking about, I knew how to write it down. So that went on, and somebody asked me if I would like to write a book about electronic drums. Electronic drums had just arrived. So that was that was the first one. The second one was the book of the Simmons drum. Simmons were really making waves, and they were everywhere. Everywhere you looked, people were playing Simmons, and so I had lots to do with that. I put the sounds into something called SDX, which was their all singing, all dancing drum. And so that was my third book. No, it wasn't. Sorry, it was my second book. My third book was Banging On. My fourth book was the book of the Heyman drum. My fifth book is Crash Bang Wallop. The sixth book is going to be On the Road Again, and the seventh book is going to be Have You Come Far? Now, I think if a shameless plug is Have You Come Far it's sort of a joke, but it's an homage as well. And when you meet the Queen, I should probably say when one meets the Queen. If you meet her in Windsor High Street, and she's on one side of the barrier and you're on the other, she will say, "Have you come far?" But she says that all the time. So by the time you've got your wits together and you realize, hey, the Queen was just talking to me there, and you're about to say, "I only live round the corner, man." She has moved on to the next guy in the queue and said, "Have you come far?"
Asking the same question. Well, have you come far? I mean, you have come far in your life. So many stories. It's brilliant to see.
Good link. Did you see the link there? See how professional that was, Rob? You see what he did there? It's just
hang on. There's
poetry in motion.
There's a good question. We will send you some fun questions now. Hey, let's go to some fun questions. We will send you off to a desert island. Ian loves these kind of questions. So desert island questions. If you could only take one album with you on a desert island, which album would it be? Feel free to say a Russ Ballard album.
Well, I would, but
we want the truth.
Isn't that a given, though, Sven? There would be in true desert island disc style. There's always some constant, like the Shakespeare and the New Testament and all that sort of thing. So what I would take, obviously, I'd take a Russ Ballard album, but I don't ask me which one. But maybe Barnet Dogs. But I would, I think I would take Jimmy Smith, Organ Grinder Swing. If anybody's listened to it of late, it's 50 odd years old and it sounds completely modern. It's absolutely fabulous. And so I'd like to take that, but I wouldn't also, it'd be a toss up between that and Take 5, Dave Brubeck. But I suppose if I really sat down and thought, I'd come up with a completely different bunch of records. But that's it for the moment. That's this moment's records I would take.
Yeah.
Well, okay, yeah. So along those lines, then that's an album, but one single to a desert island, one song. No, it would normally be a single, but I suppose it could be an album track. To be fair.
Yeah, this is really left field. When I was with...
That's why we asked you, you see.
Okay, when I was with Don McLean, we would sit on the bus singing doo-wop songs, believe it or not. And Don taught me how to sing doo-wop and how the harmonies go and all that sort of thing. So we'd spend a lot of time learning doo-wop songs, and one of them was "What's Your Name?"
What's your name? I have seen you before. What's your name? May I walk you to your door? It's so hard to find a personality with charms like yours for me. Ooh, 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 wee. What's your name? Is it Mary or Sue? What's your name? Do I stand a chance with you? It's so hard to find a personality with charms like yours for me. Ooh wee, ooh wee, ooh wee. I stood on this corner, waiting for you to come along, so my heart could feel satisfied. So please let me be your number one, under the moon, under the stars, and under the sun. Oh, what's your name? What's your name? Is it Mary or Sue? What's your name? Do I stand a chance with you? It's so hard to find a personality with charms like yours for me. Ooh wee, ooh wee, ooh wee. What's your name? What's your name? Shoo-doo-ba-ba-da.
And that would really work for me, because it's very soulful. Other than that, Etta James would be great to have with me as well. Da 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 da.
I don't want you to be no slave. I don't want you to work all day. But I want you to be true. And I just want to make
Yeah.
You know, the trouble is, now I'm telling you the truth. We've sent you out to a desert island. We've handed over an album of your choice, of course, and now we tell you there's no electricity and you don't have anything to play it. So we bring you back into the normal life.
Well, in which case, Sven, it would have to be a 12-inch LP, so you had the opportunity of looking at it and reading it,
That's
as
good.
opposed to having a DVD or whatever it was, and not, well, first of all, you couldn't play it, but and having that and not being a
So that's good. That's good. Ian, is there anything? I think there's one more question you want to ask.
Well, yeah, there was. You mean the difficult question? You mean the difficult question, Sven?
Yeah, the difficult one.
I'm just. But I'll tell you what. Before we ask the difficult one, I just thought of a mini supplementary that we'll throw in. The dinner party question, Bob. So let's say you can have 4 of you around the table, and one of them is you. So any living person or any deceased person that you could have round the dinner table, say 2 or 3 people. Who are those people you would like to have round the dinner table?
The Russell, obviously, Thorpe, I don't know, Jim Rodford.
Wow.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah,
these,
lovely.
We miss these guys, and
Yeah, absolutely.
and Mod, of course.
Hello, handsome. How are you?
But he would be there anyway, of course,
Yes.
to entertain.
That's so
us.
him.
Exactly.
That's
All
so
right.
him.
So that's a lovely, Bob. That's a lovely answer. Difficult question. So with all the great names that you've been working with, we'd like to know the best and the worst. It might be musicianship, or it might be for different reasons.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, blimey, this is inflammatory stuff. I'm trying to pick people who are dead. Yeah. Russell and I played with somebody in St Albans Corn Exchange, and it was a guy called Ricky Valens who had an English version of "Tell Laura I Love Her," and we backed him, and he was I believe, I'm not sure how to say this, but he was full of himself, and but he wasn't as good as he thought he was. And at the time, our band, the Daybreakers, backed an awful lot of people. So we backed all the Larry Palm's stable of artists. So we would get to a gig, we would do our show with Buster Meagle, and then we'd back the star of the evening, who would do a few songs, and including his hit, which in this place was "Tell Laura I Love Her." So it's not fair to say he's the worst, but he was getting there. He was closer than most. Other than that, the best person you're going to want me to say.
Perhaps the best musician you've done a lot of recording in the studio. You've backing people on the road. Is there one musician that you just looked up to and went, wow?
You know, if I say no, you're not going to like me, are you? I can't think of one.
It's your prerogative. We'll always like you, Bob.
We will always like you. That's it.
Okay. I think Russell would be up there without a doubt. And B.B. King would be up there. And B.B. King would be up there because we did the first Argent tour. We did a gig it wasn't Detroit, Cleveland. We were in Cleveland, and we were playing in a gym, and Argent went on, and we were on before B.B. King. And as we came off, B.B. King was going onto the stage through a very narrow door. So I stood back so he could get through, and he had Lucille, which is his guitar, in his arms, and he was cradling Lucille. And he walked through the door and he said, "Thanks, man." And then he said, as he got past me, he said, "Sounds good, man." So he'd been standing there listening to what we were doing. So I thought that was good enough for me, coming from B.B. King.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a fantastic and real positive way to perhaps end the questions today, Bob. And I think I'll let Sven probably finish off in a moment, but I just wanted to, on behalf of everybody listening, on behalf of the Voices of Russ Ballard, myself, Sven, we really enjoyed chatting to you, as we always did. Thank you for giving up so much of your time. These stories are legendary, and I know you've probably told them many, many times, but to us, we're listening to most of these for the first time. So you've been very, very generous with your time, and this will be the first, or has been the first, podcast we can play with the proper music too. So we're very proud of that. But personally, before I hand over to Sven to just finish up, I'd just like to say thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Well, I'll see you on the road. And everybody else, I hope.
We will be there. Don't worry. We will be there.
With the grace of God.
It will be good. It will be good to be back on the road and see you. You know, it's something Russell wrote in 2006 or so. It was short before the Book of Love tour. He was so proud having you back on board. So "Back with Bob" was the headline of the short article Russell has written. And
all right.
Yeah, "Back with Bob," and he was so happy. Back with Bob after 30 years on the road, and that was amazing to see you guys back on the road, in 2007. And we all hope to see you, this year or next year, whenever the pandemic will allow us safe traveling around the world. Ian and me, we really hope to see you again and share some good time, having a beer, hearing some great music somewhere in UK or in Germany or Portugal. Who knows? But for now, thank you so much for your time, for the great stories. And next time we see us, you tell us the stories you didn't want to tell us here because it's not late enough. I understand this.
Yeah. And
Good.
we haven't got money for lawyers.
No. So thanks again. Time to say goodbye from me, Sven.
And from me, Ian. I hope you've enjoyed the Voices of Russ Ballard with the legendary Mr. Bob Henrit.
Hi, this is Russ Ballard, and you're listening to the Voices of Russ Ballard podcast.